Ezra Levant here in Luton in the United Kingdom. I'm with Tommy Robinson. Earlier this morning, he got out of prison where he was in solitary confinement for 7 months. Take a look at that.
Do you know, I said thank yous. I thanked Elon Musk. I want to make sure there's so many people I need to personally thank. I want to thank the Petersons. I want to thank Tammy, who travelled to this jail but wasn't allowed in at the same time that they were cancelling all my visits. I've got so many personal thank yous to give out. I'll miss people and I'll forget people. Ezra Levant, I'm going to go see him now. Yeah. Ezra has continuously had my back. I think everyone needs a friend like Ezra from Rebel Media. He's continually helped me. He's helped my family and been in contact. Do you know they cut any contact with Ezra? I weren't allowed any contact with him in there because they probably knew that he was the one man that could have helped. And I believe I'd have been out of jail if I'd have had direct contact with Ezra Levant.
Tommy, it's great to see you. You had a bit of a shave and a haircut. We grabbed a bite of breakfast. You said a quick hello to the kids. Thank you for sitting down with me. I'm so interested to talk to you about your terrible experience, but in a couple of ways, a wonderful experience too. I want to talk both sides of it. First of all, welcome.
No, thanks, Ezra. Thank you. Thank you as well.
7 months in a maximum security prison full of murderers and terrorists in segregation for a word crime. You published a video on Twitter. It wasn't even a crime at all.
It's a civil offence. I still find it unbelievable. I find it unbelievable, the sentences, because the guidelines, what I find unbelievable, criminals get 60% off, and then they half it again and get HDC, home detention curfew, for tagging. And they say the reason for the Labour government brought in the policy that they get 60% off, and they're emptying the prisons because the prisons are full. So I go to prison as a civil offender. You're right, as a civil offender, you should go to an open prison. I'm transferred to HMP Woodhill, maximum security. When they took me to the segregation unit, there's 16 cells here, 16 cells here, so they cleared that whole side. So they put just me on this side.
So they let those prisoners go free?
No, they give them, so when you go down, segregation in a prison is where you go for punishment. So if you stab someone, and there's some amazing, I have had a 7-month education of interviewing officers. Every officer I saw, I'm a journalist, I just interviewed and asked questions and watched and listened to radios, and so I could get information on what's happening within the prison system. I spent time on the separation centre, which is the prison within the prison built for jihadists, to see the facility, the accommodation. But the segregation facilities are where you go if you stab someone in jail. So you know there was recently a stabbing at Woodhill Prison. The officer got stabbed in the head.
Oh my God.
Did you see it on the news?
Right.
It's only been in the news because of the Salman Abedi's brother attack. There's been some high-profile, like terrorist attacks within the prison system against members of staff. And 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago, there was an attack on a prison officer. So when that boy stabbed the prison officer in the head, he gets put in the segregation unit. That's what the segregation unit's for. Now, to get them out, because the staff told me, they were bribing the prisoners. So because they're down segregation, they were saying, just forget whatever you've done, you can go back to the wing. So where they've gone down there as punishment for violently attacking people or any problems they've done in the jail, they were just all let out. And they're not allowed TVs down there. Yeah, they're giving them all TVs. They're getting them to move over to the other side of segregation, giving them TVs. So I was on my own there.
So this was to clear out a wing for you. They were letting these terrorists who were violent, someone stabbed a guard, but they needed to clear space for you, so they let them out of segregation.
Let them out of segregation. So I had 16 cells there. And then for the first 5 weeks, I just stayed there, 23.5-hour lockup. I got taken out on the exercise yard on my own for 30 minutes. And this was why they were trying to work out what to do. And then because I was a civil offender, they had to allow me exercise. And they wouldn't allow me any, any interaction with anyone else. But they said for my own safety. So then there's a separation centre. So the British prisons built in 6 prisons in the UK, I think it's 6, they built prisons within prisons for the jihadists. So the worst, most feared jihadists, because they're converting and recruiting on the wings, the worst ones go to this centre called a separation centre. So I was held on segregation, but every morning then, I'd get taken at 8:30 in the morning, I'd get walked over, 22 doors, so I counted, someone said, so it's 22 doors, you go through all the locked doors, but to get me from here, 16 cells here, 16 cells here, to get me from here, so that no one saw me, I'd go through the back office route, all the way around the back and taken out, then over to the maximum security. So although Woodhill is a category B long-term prison, it has the most secure unit in the country. So the worst prisoners, it's where you come and had the visit. That unit there is for the top security. So to get a prisoner out of the cell on that unit, they have 6 fully dressed in riot gear officers just to take them to the shower. So to walk them from here, they open the door, they take them from there, they get all padded up into full riot gear, then they take them to the shower, and then they walk back. But that's where that unit is. For anyone who's murdered people in prison, for any of the repeat violent murder offenders, they go to this unit. But so there's different sections to this unit, but one section is the jihadist unit, for the jihadists. But it was closed. So in Woodhill, it was closed. It's empty. So when they took me at 8:30 in the morning, they'd put me on this unit on my own. So I'd have 30 minutes outside, and then it's not a gym, it's like a small makeshift gym. It's got a running machine and exercise bike. So for the first 5 months or so, that's 4.5 months, that's where I was in the morning from 8:30 till 11:30 on my own. So the prison, I'd get locked outside, I'd walk around for 30 minutes. Then I'd get locked in this little gym, I'd spend 2 hours in there. But I got to see the facilities on the separation centre. It's like a travel lodge, you know, a travel lodge hotel?
Yeah.
It's mad, I've been in 10 prisons. So prisons are not nice environments, the beds. So segregation centre, because you're down there as a punishment, there's nothing in your cell. There's just the blue mat, the bed. But even on normal wings, you sort of have makeshift rooms.
Let me pause you there. I want to learn more about what it was like in prison,
Yeah.
because the fact that you were held in a prison built for terrorists and murderers and the full riot gear transfers is shocking. But for some of our viewers who might not know the backstory, let's just pause for a second. You were sent in there not for committing a crime, not for harming anyone, not for terrorism or murder. You were sent in there for publishing a documentary film to Twitter. A judge said, don't do it. You did it. And so he threw you in prison.
I did it. I knew they'd throw me in prison. I know if I give them any opportunity, they'd throw me in prison. But what that documentary shown to everyone who's watched it is it showed the corruption of the judiciary along with the government working together in order to silence people through intimidation or through NDAs. What you see in the film is NDAs.
Non-disclosure agreements.
Non-disclosure agreements, they pay people just to keep them silent. So you never get the story out there because people are being paid not to tell the story.
So this was the case of a Syrian teenager at a school, and I'm not looking to crack open the facts of it, but
I'm not allowed to crack open the facts. I'll go straight back to jail.
So, I mean, and I'm not looking to violate any court orders here myself. I don't want to be thrown in jail or banned from the UK, but that's what the subject matter was. It was a lively debate. And, you know, I won't press you because I don't want to get you in trouble, but it was a real issue. And my view of it is essentially a judge said, your evidence in this documentary does not reach the evidentiary level to have it admissible in court.
Well, the judge.
Go ahead.
The judge ruled that 7 teachers that were covertly recorded were lying. All of them were lying. 5 pupils that come to court to testify, they were lying. He just ruled that everyone was lying. He doesn't say what. Do you know? In his summary, he says sometimes people just lie. They don't need a reason to lie. They just lie. So he found that 5 children committed perjury. That's what his ruling was. And the only person that told the truth was the Syrian refugee in question. So, but by coming to that finding, what he'd done by giving the injunction, preventing anyone from seeing the film, was preventing anyone seeing the evidence. So then no one can see that it's impossible to come to the verdict he come to if they can see the evidence.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, in America, there's a phrase, the Streisand effect. It's named after Barbara Streisand. She didn't want people taking photos of her home in Malibu. So all of a sudden, everybody took photos of her home in Malibu.
Okay.
You know, no one would have been interested had she not said, "You can't do that." So they ordered you not to make the film. By the time you took it down a couple of weeks ago, it had 167 million views.
Most watched film in British history.
Seems
But I think it took those views, and I'll be honest. When I made the decision to release the film, I was shitting myself. I was scared. I was scared, and I knew where it would end up. And I knew that by giving them that opportunity, it would give them the opportunity to hold me on segregation and solitary confinement. I knew that. I knew that it would give them the opportunity to mess with everything and play games with everything. But the British public need to know, because they're getting spoon-fed stories and narratives and agendas by the government and by the state, and they need to know the truth. It's like the grooming scandal, which is why I believe there's such a target on my back. They managed for decades to suppress it and silence it. They managed successfully to hide it. The police knew it was happening for decades. The government knew it was happening for decades.
This is the organized
rape. The media, all the media knew. None of them reported it, they all knew. All of them knew. So the last thing they want is citizen journalism. And I always say the mainstream media are the cancer and citizen journalism is the cure. We're uncontrollable. I learned this from you, Ezra. I learned this from you, to tell the other side of the story that the public aren't getting. So with this story, they spoon-fed the entire population a narrative and an agenda-driven story about open border immigration and not hiding the realities and the problems that come with that. And they lied. So then I created my documentary, which gave people here. I didn't even give my opinion. I just said, actually, here's the evidence. I'm not allowed to say what the evidence is, but here's the evidence. Make your own mind up, which is how it should be. But that's not. So yeah, I produced a documentary I thought the British public deserved to see, and the reason why I thought they deserved to see, anyone, Ezra, you've been in this situation when you're in the hot seat, yeah, or you're exposing things, they come at you from everywhere. I don't know how many lawsuits you've fought. I learned it from you. You've fought lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, and the supporters help you fight those lawsuits. But if they didn't, you'd be finished. Yeah. And that is lawfare. And I remember when I first started my activism, it hit on me, but I watched Geert Wilders in Holland, who was very outspoken at the time. He wasn't big, but he was talking about the Islamisation of Holland. And he faced prosecution after prosecution after prosecution. Morten Messerschmidt, who's the leader of the Danish People's Party in Denmark, who was against the EU a bit and speaking about Islam, he faced the same. And I looked, and this is the same playbook across the entire globe. I looked over to America. I looked what they've done to General Flynn. I looked what they've done to Steve Bannon. I think
Donald Trump himself.
Donald Trump would spend the rest of his life in prison if he didn't win that election. And the Trump administration know that. So they're fully aware of the weaponisation and the politicisation of the judiciary. But most people in the British public believe there's a justice system. What I wanted to do with this film is show them there's not. Now, I know there's not, but you need to see there's not. So if you look at it like this, say, for example, Elon Musk didn't buy X, because I knew that film had been leaked. And at the same time, it got removed off of all the other social medias.
Oh, so Facebook took it down and YouTube took it down?
YouTube took it down. So I knew then they're coming for me.
Did Rumble keep it up?
Rumble kept it up, but I knew they were coming for me. So what I knew was they're going to delete the film from everywhere, then put me in jail. So then, if there was no X, then 167 million people wouldn't have seen the truth. All you would have seen is the mainstream media headlines. Now, if you go on Google now and Google Tommy Robinson contempt of court, they tell you that I lied. No, I didn't lie. I just done 18 months for not lying. Yeah, they tell you I lied. So, but that's all you would have known. So if you go on my Wikipedia page and you ignore the documentary and the film you've watched, you'll see case after case after case of just their lies, of their agenda, of telling you who I am, the bad person I am, the extremist I am. I've been defamed and slandered by a globalist media who have attacked me. And I've looked at this. I believe we in Britain live in a totalitarian state, and the media are just a weapon of the state. The judiciary is another weapon of the state. And if you get in their way or you challenge them, they use any of their armoury to destroy you. And that's what I experienced. And anyone, I'm happy. And do you know what? I was happy even in there. Whilst I knew, I was panicked because I knew the long-term effect of solitary confinement. I remember last time I was in prison. I remember the problems I had when I was released. So constantly I was concerned for that.
A consulting psychologist examined you in prison and wrote a lengthy report that was shown to the court that suggested being in solitary confinement for 7 months was having a grave impact on your mental health. Tell me about that. And what did any prison nurses or doctors meet with you? What did they say? I've never heard of anyone other than Julian Assange spend 7 months in solitary confinement. Typically, as you mentioned, it's a short-term punishment for someone who engages in misconduct.
2 weeks, 14 days. It's called the Mandela Rule. You're only allowed to do 14 days.
I think it's unprecedented in the UK. I don't want to say that with certainty, but certainly no other journalist has ever been sentenced to contempt of court in this manner. No other journalist has been prosecuted in nearly a century. You mentioned some of the guards, but were there nurses or doctors in prison who saw you?
So in the first week I sat down, and I've got all the paperwork for this as well. So remember, I always bring the receipts, Ezra. I like to bring the receipts on lots of issues. I've got lots of receipts. But I sat down with a psychologist, and this is the first week. And then I've been taken there. I'm in solitary confinement on my own, 23 and a half hours a day. I get out for 30 minutes. And I said to her, like, I understand, but you're the expert here, not me. What's this going to do to me? She said, this is going to be devastating to you. She told me that. So I said, okay. And I've got it in black and white. So I said, well, I don't want to be here. Yeah, I want to be out there. Like, as in, not even outside. I want to be outside. I don't want to be in jail. But and in the writing, because she wrote it all down, I said, I would rather physically fight every day. Yeah. So put me out there. I'm not asking you to separate.
So you're saying in the general population?
Put me in the general population.
So I want to clarify this because I've been told this several times by journalists, well-meaning journalists who I think are misinformed. They claim that you requested to be put in solitary, and I don't think that's true. What's the truth?
I've got the paperwork, Ezra. That we actually fought Judiciary refused to try and get me out of solitary. Yeah. Right. So never.
So it was really a tactic by the prison governor because she didn't control the prison. The prisons are controlled by the gangs. She didn't know where to put you.
They brought me from Belmarsh to Woodhill. When they brought me to Woodhill, which is a maximum security facility, it has a over 40% Muslim population. 50% of the prisoners are in there for murder. Many terrorists. A prisoner got beheaded.
Oh my God!
On the yard.
You
beheaded.
Anyone who would kill you would become an instant celebrity.
Do you know what they chopped his head off with? They chopped his head off. Right? Is a Ukrainian, got done by Muslims. They chopped his head off and they used bed sheets. They had him out in the yard and they used bed sheets to continually get his head.
Oh my God, that's medieval.
They used bed sheets. But this is...
The prison's out of control.
But why take me for a civil offence to maximum security facility where 100%, they took me there because then you are totally in danger. We cannot keep you safe. So then they have the reason to put me on solitary confinement. But when I got there, I said, I don't want to be in solitary confinement. They said, so you go out on the wing? I said, yeah, I'll go out on the wing. And I've got it in black. And I said, I would rather, the reason being, I would rather physically fight every day, than have you be able to mentally destroy me from and their silent effects. So, and this is just go on Google and say,
it's sensory deprivation.
It's what it does. And that's not me thinking.
And they played mind games with you too. Let me give you a personal example. I visited you once, and this was very early in your term, and you seemed in fair enough spirits. But I wanted to come back several times to see if you were declining. In one case, they accepted my request for a visit, but then they later canceled it. And I responded with all sorts of, I said, I'll sign a non-disclosure agreement. I'll commit to a binding undertaking. Like, I just want to get in and see how you're doing, and I wanted to talk to you. And I think they were playing games, saying yes, then no.
They blocked everyone, and they blocked them last minute the day before. And they let people fly here from America, and then they blocked them. So this was all happening at the same time. This is about 8 weeks in, because it was towards Christmas or over Christmas.
Was there a change? Like, why did they suddenly become whimsical and capricious?
So, well, I believe it was after Dan Wootton's visit. Wootton visited me.
He's a journalist.
And on that visit, I explained to him, when I was taken to Belmarsh Prison for the first week, I was held in the contingency suite, which is a solitary confinement block of 3 units. Yeah? So no one else is there. But the exercise yard for that is a little courtyard. And healthcare, which is the medical hospital wing, is above. Right. Now, when I was taken there, I used to walk out and all the nurses would come to the window and they'd all say, we're with you. All the staff were great everywhere.
When I visited you, the prison guards seemed friendly.
The prison, I believe that there's not enough recognition for the job they do. I don't think people quite understand how bad it is in there for them. The attacks, the violent attacks, the getting shit thrown in their faces, piss thrown in their faces. There was, when that officer got stabbed in the head, there was 3 attacks that day. Just that day, two prisoners are dead in the last 4 months in Woodhill. That's in Woodhill. In one 7-day period, just from remember, I'm not with the officers much. I'm getting trapped when I get walked across places, listening to their radios. One female officer had her nose broke. Another officer lost his teeth. Another officer was attacked with boiling water. That was in a 7-day period, just in Woodhill.
The prisons are out of control.
That's just in the walking, when I'm walking from A to B. That's just me listening on the radios when I'm walking from A to B.
Wow.
I'm not spending 8 hours with them.
Wow.
That's me walking from A to B. But they were all at the same time. So they cancel my visits, and then I wait all day. So my phone, and I bring the receipts. When I was on the jihadist wing, I took the paper. So they've got paper with all their phone times of when their phones are on. So I took it. I've got it at home now. Yeah. I took it from the jihadist wing. Their phones go on at 6 a.m. and they're on till 11 p.m. at night.
So they can phone any time. I understand that you were limited.
I was half hour in the morning, half hour.
When your kids were at school or at work.
Well, but then they didn't let me have a 6 in the evening one where they put it on for an hour. But then I'd wait all day. Now this may sound small, but when you're spending that 21 hours sat on a blue mat waiting, and you wait for that phone call, they just don't turn the phone on. I'm ready to kill someone. Little things. So I'm ready to kill someone.
And I don't believe that, they had so many petty little manipulations like that. One or two, I can imagine.
It stopped when the governor left.
There's no way that wasn't part of a psychological campaign against you.
It stopped when Nicola Marfleet left. So
I
Nicola Marfleet resigned the day after my
She
court
was
case.
a sadistic woman
She
who
was-
was appointed to that position clearly for agenda
She
quarter.
resigned, and all of the people that had been cancelled, the visitors, Dominic Szreski, Polish MP, they were allowed to come. You'd have been allowed to come once she was gone. She was blocking the visits, just messing. As I said, I knew when I was playing the film, I knew I'm putting myself in that position, so I shouldn't be moaning about it too much because I knew exactly what I was doing. But I also had this hope that the film would reach the masses because the film is far bigger than Tommy Robinson. The film is what's happening to whistleblowers everywhere. As I said, the weaponisation of the courts and lawfare being used as a weapon to suppress and silence people, which is what I've experienced the whole of my time, but I wanted everyone else to see it. And the film showed them that. And off the back of that film, as soon as I went to jail, it became very apparent quick from the mail I was receiving that it's had the adverse effect for what they hoped.
You know, I remember when you were going to court for your sentencing and you pled guilty. You basically said, yes, I did. I'm not going to deny.
Ezra, do you know how pissed off? £84,000 was handed to those lawyers. Right? So we prepared to fight the case. So we prepared to fight the case.
We crowdfunded that.
We crowdfunded and we're ready to fight the case. It hurt me the whole time I was sitting in there. So we crowdfunded to fight the case. So I land back into the UK and I know I've got a warrant out but from the High Court. So I land and they don't arrest me. So I say to my solicitor the next day, yeah, you need to ring them, I want to hand myself in because I can see what they're going to do here, yeah? We had the big rally on the Saturday. So she contacts the High Court and says, is there a warrant out? He wants to hand himself in. The judge says, no, there's not, yeah? So the judge says no, okay? I go to answer bail for something else on the Friday at 1 o'clock. At 11 a.m. in the morning, the judge activated the warrant. So after saying there's not one, he activates it at 11 a.m. I go to answer bail at 1 a.m. I'm arrested. There's no chance for bail. So I was arrested to make sure I missed the demonstration on Saturday. Now that is the judge making a political decision. Because if I've got a warrant, I should be arrested. He held the warrant. So then the lawyers come down to see me, and do you know, I pled guilty. Anyone can watch what I pled guilty to. I pled guilty to the film going out in America. Yeah, I have evidence. I have video evidence from when the American journalists knocked on my mum and dad's door because they videoed it, like they videoed everything. Yeah, when they knocked on my mum and dad's door, that they had come into possession of the film and they were playing the film. Yeah, so I was ready to fight not guilty. Also, the fact that the judge, Justice Nicklin, he didn't have me in court because he said he had COVID. Yeah, he didn't want to give out the verdict, so he said he had COVID. Then he emailed me the injunction. Now, email of an injunction doesn't constitute service. So I'd never had the injunction because they're supposed to use a service presider and have a stamp to say I've been. So we had a technicality argument to fight. But when I got down to when the KC come to see me, I was in Felixstowe Police Station. I said, you know what? Because they kept saying if I apologise. I said, A, I don't want to apologise. And B, I want to own it. I said, I'm sitting here now. I don't want to get off on a technicality. I don't want to get off on a technicality. And I don't want to fight and argue. Say I won. Say I did win. If I did win, the world would not have seen that film. So the world would not have seen that film. So I said, okay, I'll plead guilty to every single bit of it, but I want to own it, that I'd done it for free speech. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, and I remember that day. I was in court that day.
Oh,
and you basically said, yes, I did it. And you flew, but you were in Spain. You flew to meet your fate. You didn't evade. You didn't run away. You flew to it.
I flew to it without sounding cocky, without sounding stupid either. They walked straight into it. I played that film. They should have ignored it. It had 200,000 views. When they come for me, it had 200,000 views. They gave me 167 million views.
I think on the day you were sentenced, if memory serves, that film had been seen 55 million times.
Yeah, by the time, but before, when they first come for court, so remember, I had never released the film.
Right.
So they come for me for someone else releasing it in America.
And then
they deleted it.
That's that Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I remember saying to you, and maybe this shows that I'm a bit of a coward by comparison. I remember saying to you, I don't know if you remember me saying it. I said, look, declare victory. This thing's been seen 55 million times.
No, I remember.
And I'm not, but I'm actually here to say, I think maybe I was wrong. Because I don't think I would voluntarily submit to 7 months in solitary. I don't know if I have the physical or mental stamina for that. But what that did, like you say, more than 100 million new people saw it. But your story of, I'm going to use the word martyrdom. Everyone knew you were sacrificing yourself for a principle, not for a financial gain, not for an immoral purpose. It's extremely rare for someone to offer their body as a sacrifice. If I may, it's almost Christ-like to say, I'm going to suffer for a principle. 100 million extra people saw it. Elon Musk starts tweeting "Free Tommy Robinson," and the entire cause of freedom of speech in the United Kingdom is accelerated. You spending 7 months in a form of torture, solitary confinement is a form of torture, I believe accelerated the vector of free speech and looking into these grooming gangs.
Yeah, it was the grooming gang thing for me. You know, when I sat in there, it was the first week of January, I remember ringing home. I rang home and my son said, "Dad, Dad." And he was shouting on the phone. I was like, "What?" He said, "Elon Musk shared the film. Elon Musk shared the film." I was so excited. And then Elon Musk shared the rape of Britain. And you know, that work, remember.
And it was because you were in prison.
That's what, and I know in this country there's no free speech. But there's this facade of free speech. Yeah. They continually pretend we have free speech. We are North Korea, we are China, we are Russia. But we pretend to the country we're this bastion of free speech.
30 arrests a day for social media non-crime hate incidents. 30 a day. I don't know if you saw that when you were in Britain.
I didn't, no.
The Times of London reports 30 people a day are arrested for
mean words. For mean words, well, they don't even deal with criminals. The point is there is a war being waged in this country on free speech, and many of the public are not even aware the war's going on. So I knew what I hoped and I dreamed. And I remember my son come on a visit and I said, "Son," because it's a difficult, you know, when I make a decision, my whole family have to pay. So I remember sitting the kids down saying, "I want to do this." And it ate me up for 3 years. Remember, we're only gagged and we're only silenced if we let them gag us and let them silence us. And when they gave me that injunction, I didn't release the film for 3 years because I was scared of solitary confinement. I was scared of the consequences. I was scared of the effect on the family. And it ate me up for that amount of time. So then I sat the kids down, I sat the family down and said, I've got to release the film.
Wow.
I've got to release the film. And it's going to eat me up forever if I don't. And it still would have. So I can come out now and it's probably going to take me a little while to readjust anyway. I remember last time I had problems. I felt weird going back to my house. Oh. So I'll have that. But I may have had my time taken from me. I may have been incarcerated in a cell, but I felt free. I didn't feel free. And do you know what? When it was all kicking off with Keir Starmer, in that first week of January, I was sitting there thinking, I feel a lot freer than Keir Starmer does at the minute. When the world was hammering the Labour Party and as they should, and free speech in Britain. And so I know there's no free speech, and I know the tactics that have been used. And I'm not angry with what they've done. But I want the world to know. And right now, successfully, the world are fully aware that we live in a post-free speech era in modern Europe.
There are other forces at work in the UK in addition to you, but I think that you are a part of the reason why there are now more scrutiny of the rape gangs than ever, why there's more discussion of stopping the migrant boats than ever, why freedom of speech is being raised, not just by ordinary Brits, but even the Trump administration is raising it with Keir Starmer for the second time. I think that in the backdrop, your imprisonment and the blatant prosecution of you for political trials, I really think that was an accelerant to these trends of Brits waking up. And frankly, the world. I mean, Elon Musk is not a Brit, but he told the world about that.
He told the world about the rape gang scandal. And when he did, I remember the satisfaction. Do you know, because I could have gone to prison and no one watched the film. I could have done all this and no one watched the film. It's a big risk. I could have sat in there. I could have got killed in there. Had all these risks and all these things.
I was worried about that.
So was I, if I'm honest. But I had all these things I was weighing up. So at that moment in January, first week in January, I thought, fucking yes. The whole world's talking about the torture and rape of British children, which has happened in every single town and city across our country. The whole world's talking about it. That's something we've been batting. I started my activism 16 years ago, and since the moment I started, I faced relentless attack and persecution from the state. To imprison, lock up, defame, slander, destroy, to make me toxic, to essentially destroy me.
And they would have had the last word. And I mean, we're talking a lot about Elon Musk, but were it not for X, or Twitter as it used to be called, you would not have a chance to rebut, to rejoin, to
not just I wouldn't.
So many people would be deplatformed.
Everyone who was gone, everyone who was deplatformed. And do you know what? Elon Musk comes back and he believes in free speech. So he buys a platform for free speech. Our opposition, who hate us, they're all still on there.
Yeah.
He hasn't censored them. It's great.
Right.
That's the way it should be. But previous to that, everyone who challenged the globalist narrative or the globalist agenda, everyone, whether that be vaccines, whether it be transgenderism, whether it be any of these issues, they were blacklisted and they were deleted and they were cancelled. They were demonetised and they were got rid of. Yeah. And that was across unpersoned across all social platforms.
And it's not just that it silenced you. There's something about a powerful, wealthy industrialist, the most famous man, our Thomas Edison, bringing you back to life politically that defeats the alienation and the marginalization. Like there's a social pain that comes with being pushed into silence. But when the biggest guy around says, no, he's okay, it's sort of a signal to the other mean girls that they can't bully.
But look what they've done to him now. I sat there worrying about him, if I'm honest. I was sitting there worrying about him.
Yeah.
I was sitting there thinking, geez, they're coming for him.
Yeah.
Wow, when I was watching what's happening in the United States and the stance he's taken. And it's the same with Donald Trump. When Donald Trump first stood for presidency, I thought, here's a billionaire. He's loved by everyone. And he steps into this arena and becomes, at the time, one of the most hated men in the world, in the first presidency. And I thought, he didn't have to do that. So then look at Elon Musk. He didn't have to do this. He's the richest man in the world. He didn't have to step into this. What do you benefit from stepping into this debate? Yeah. They come at you. So his belief in free speech, the only place in the world that has free speech is the United States of America. That's it. That's it. The rest of everywhere else is an embarrassment to free speech. So the other person, so I thank Elon Musk for raising the profile. I really thank him for his belief in free speech. I think in history he'll be remembered not for sending things up to space or Mars. I think it will be for free speech, because if we lose free speech, we lose everything. We live under tyranny already, but there's a little chance of fighting back against it, and that's only through platforms like X. I have a massive thank you to give to Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, and not for 1 minute do I think every person you sit down with agrees with you on everything. I'm sure if Jordan sat down, there'd be things he'd disagree with me on. But for him to sit, and at that moment, when I come to Canada, to hear my story, do you know how many emails I received in prison and how many letters I received from people who didn't like me, but listened to my story on Jordan Peterson? Because what Jordan Peterson done as such an intellect is he brings a different demographic that we're usually ignoring you or believe in the media.
Different circuit, different class, different country.
And do you know how many of them watched my interview and then say, I then found Panodrama, I then found The Rape of Britain, I then found...
It was a gateway interview.
It's a gateway interview, as was Silence, the documentary, into our other content and work. And I'm not just saying it.
That's why they want to censor it, because, you know...
It opens the doors.
Yeah,
people start seeing, well, that's a lie.
If the algorithm isn't suppressed, like I remember before they silenced you the first time, you had more online engagement than the Prime Minister or the Leader of the Opposition.
All three of their parties added up.
That's why they meddled with the algorithm.
And that's why they deleted me off Facebook. They deleted me off Facebook over my Panorama documentary. Again, it was a documentary. They deleted me off everything. YouTube. But I think that they had such a monopoly, but they still think they've got that monopoly. Yeah. Because I watched the news articles when I went to prison, and I listened to it all going on. When they're saying I'm lying, and I'm thinking, you're digging your own grave, because millions have seen that film. And that means they now know you're lying. Yeah. You're not being honest.
It's such an astonishingly large number.
Oh man, and do you know what, Ezra? There's not one single British journalist, not one. And I wish they would have been outside prison today. Yeah. So I know they're taking pictures, but I'd like to ask a journalist, a British journalist, why have none of you spoke about the content of the film? Okay, so none of you. So it's the most watched documentary in history.
I think Piers Morgan mentioned it. I think he said he watched it.
Did he? Well, he should do, because he was one of the liars and frauds that started it, wasn't he? He destroyed a young child's life based on wanting to jump on the bandwagon of being woke and jump on the bandwagon of racist English boy, which wasn't the story. I think Piers, I heard from someone, had accepted that Bailey was innocent in the film. Piers obviously has his issue with me. I'd respect anyone who accepts they were wrong. Yeah? When you watch that film, Piers was wrong. Piers' reporting was wrong. It destroyed a young child's life, and he should hold his hands up. That's what I think he should do. Not to do with me. He can hate me if he wants to hate me. But we're talking about a 15-year-old child, Bailey was. Do you know about Bailey come visit me last week? Got an email. I'd love to read it. I got an email from the girl. There was one of the children witnesses. She got 11 A stars. She was a grade A student. She was studying law when she come and testified at court. Obviously, the judge found that everyone lied, including her. I don't know why a grade A student studying law would make something up before my involvement, but that's what the judge found. She sent me an email saying how, because she'd watched a podcast from me where I said, I probably shouldn't have allowed them to give evidence because I know what the system's like. I don't believe there's any justice in there, and when you're before a judge, not a jury. So I know what it's like, and I knew they were going to rule against me. And I believe that girl dropped out of her law course, but she sent me a lovely email saying, Stephen, she's feeling guilty because when I first knocked on her door, and she told me the truth, that I said I wasn't going to back down and I was going to fight it, and now she felt guilty that I'm sat in prison. But she said she listened to a podcast where I said I shouldn't have let her testify, and she said I'm proud that I've testified, and if I could go back again, I'd do exactly the same again, Stephen.
Well, I hope that you have an opportunity to have a good argument with Piers Morgan, because I know that he has said some things about you that I would call untrue and unfair.
Well, they are untrue,
But I think of all the British journalists in mainstream, I think he does abide a rollicking debate. And it's my hope that you appear on his show and just have at it.
Might have to tell him to unblock me first.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's just my
Shit
own. I think that would be an amazing debate. And I think you would more than hold your own. I think you have a command of the facts.
Yeah, Ezra, I have truth on my side, so I'm not sitting there debating anything other than the truth.
Yeah.
So
Well, I've seen you debate. I've seen you. I remember when you were on Good Morning Britain. Let me ask you: are there any people in mainstream media who are fair? I'm not even going to say sympathetic, but they're fair. And are they allowed to write about you? Because sometimes it's not just the reporter; it's their editor or publisher who says, "We're not siding with the far right, alt right Tommy Robinson."
Yeah, I don't think that those mainstream reporters matter anymore. I think they don't realise that. It's like the mainstream media are walking around, if I could give the analogy, that they're like someone with a terminal illness walking around. They're dying. Yeah? And it must hurt them that they're the old God and we're the new God. Yeah? And people don't turn to them for their news.
They don't get 167 million views on their reports.
They don't get however many views we're going to get on this, Ezra. Yeah?
I want to ask you a question that is the scariest question of all for me. I love the law. I went to law school. I practiced briefly as a lawyer. The fountain of our law, even in Canada, is the United Kingdom. This is where it started, the Magna Carta. We look up to the UK. But I am reluctantly and against my wishes coming to the view that you cannot get a fair trial in this country. That between the police, the prosecutors, the courts, that it's what Stalin's secret policeman Lavrenti Beria once said: "Show me the man, I'll find you the crime." As in, they're going to find something about you. The day after a judge said you could leave prison,
They come in again.
they filed 2 bogus charges against you for taking pictures of paparazzi. There's another charge against you for not giving your password on your cell phone to police without a warrant. I think that you have become an enemy of the state, and I hate to say this because I love the United Kingdom and I love the law, but I do not feel that Tommy Robinson can get justice in this legal political establishment. What do you say to that?
I know I can't, so I don't even think it. But what I also know at the same time, which is that the more they try and suppress and attack, now people can see it. So they're just, again, it's damaging them. It's damaging them and at the same time helping to awaken people. Lots of bad things are going to happen. Do you know? So the High Court that ruled against me on this case is the same High Court that ruled against Johnny Depp. So remember, Johnny Depp was convicted. He was found guilty in our court, in the High Court in London. He had to go to America to prove his case. And what came out when he got cleared in America was that it was the same evidence in the UK court. And they ruled against all the evidence because the UK court was ruling on at the time, the Me Too movement, it was politicised. So he didn't get a jury in the UK court. He got ruled against by a judge, ruled against police officers' evidence, ruled against all the evidence. Johnny Depp, if he didn't go to an American court, would still be hated as an abuser of his wife. Yeah, his name was cleared. Okay, he had to use the American court system. I used X.
Well, and you know, here's the thing.
Cheers, Elon. Yeah, and in the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
Right? So in these courts, it's pretty certain now people can see there is no justice system. Yeah. There's a legal system, and it puts a target on people it doesn't like, and then it uses any way it can to break.
I've never seen lawyers charge more than in the UK. It's astonishing.
I feel sick thinking about what they took, even from when I went guilty, because I'd already paid them for the trial, and it was 2 days, so it's the same money. But I feel sick at the cost of all of it when I think about all of it. And I think that
There's no access to justice for, the crowdfunding has come to your aid, but no normal person.
Do you know what I'm grateful for? The crowdfunding, I'm grateful for the help in America, because as long as you're still in the fight, and I looked at it, you only lose when you stop fighting. And we've carried on fighting, and we will carry on fighting.
Not everyone would endure 7 months in prison, though. I mean, that is a unique thing.
It was a long day at work, Ezra. Because that's how I viewed it. I viewed it at the time as like, I'm in a position now. It's not a position I don't think I've chose. I've ended up in this position where through me, it's exposing so much. And if they want to attack me and continue to expose it, and then when I got into prison, I thought, right, I'm now in the maximum security facility. I'm getting to see the facilities the jihadists have. I've got a million stories. I interviewed all day and I thought I'll make the most of this. So any member of staff, remember, I didn't have the same members of staff, so I literally probably saw every member of staff because they were all on overtime. So to walk me from A to B, I'd have 2 different staff every time I opened the door. And then they just walk me over.
I walked to meet you that one time I was let in. It was a very long labyrinth through. Let me confirm. You never put eyes on another prisoner. They never put eyes on you.
One prisoner, which was when. So they didn't take me over to the exercise yard. So they put over to the high security unit. So they put me out on the yard. And at that time there was a prisoner, mad story, called Joe Outlaw. Now when I got to the contingency suite in Belmarsh, which is a maximum security unit, I'd spent 3 months there before. Do you remember when you come in there? Yeah. And that has a little courtyard garden. And this time on this sentence, I went out on the courtyard garden and there was paper mache and it was covered the whole place. And I looked and thought, what's that? How has anyone done that? And I said to the officer, what's happened here? He goes, we had some prisoner called Outlaw. He said, have you heard of him? I said, no, never. He goes, most expensive prisoner there's ever been. He said, £2 million he's cost in damage. I said, £2 million, what for? He goes, he just smashes everything, yeah? But he's a climber. I said, okay. He goes, he can climb anything. And this officer was like, I said, what was he like? He goes, really nice lad. I said, okay. I goes, what's he in for? He goes, he's IPP. So this is where people...
What does that stand for?
IPP, where they give these sentences, they give about 6,000 out, where say someone they believes a risk, they'll give them 2 years, but IPP, intermediate protection. So to say the public need protection from him. Oh. So they might give you 2 years.
But you stay in until whenever?
Until they decide. Yeah.
Wow.
And if you've had a little misbehaving, then you stay in. So some people have got 2 years and they're in 15 years later. Wow. Now, Joe Outlaw, I think, got 4 years and he's still in 16 years later.
Oh my God.
But I want to look into this IPP now I'm out. But he then has, and I said to him, he goes, he smashed the window out of the cell and he made a catapult and he covered every window. And I'm looking thinking, that's some pretty good going. And then when I get put on this, when I'm on segregation, someone was put underneath me. There was never anyone there, then someone was underneath me because I could hear. Yeah. And then they put me out in the yard. So as I'm out in the yard, I heard, Tommy. I've walked over and I can see through the gap in the window. And he said, Tommy, he goes, my name's Joe Outlaw. He goes, I'm an activist like you. I said, Joe Outlaw? I said, you was on the contingency suite in Belmarsh. He goes, yeah. I said, yeah, I've just come from there. You smashed everything up. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, I've done 6 prison roofs.
Oh
and
my
I said,
God.
what do you mean? And he starts getting up clippings, showing me the window.
Oh my
And he's climbed on the roof. He said, do you know how many people are dying, Tommy? How many prisoners are killing themselves? So I have the utmost respect for someone who's sacrificed himself, which is what he's told me. He said, spoke to me about his upbringing. He sacrificed his own position to fight the system, to bring to the attention of the country IPP. So he's got on the roofs of jails, he's smashed entire things down and he's wrote IPP on the roofs and then he's sunbathing and there's pictures of him. He's doing all this. Do you know how long he spent in segregation? Because they're destroying him, they're breaking him. Yeah. So he was down there and he's only been put there. He spent 9 months on the contingency suite. So he had gone 18 months. And they're 18 months and he probably will never see the light of day again. And that's to break him. But I spoke to him, Joe Outlaw. So free Joe Outlaw. Look up Joe Outlaw's story. Wow. That's the only person I spoke to. And I spoke to him for 1 hour. And then once they realised I'd spoke to him at the window, I never got out again. Oh. And then they moved him.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, I bet for both of you it was the first human interaction.
It was the first person I'd seen, yeah. First person I'd seen to speak to. And I said, it may sound, because they said, it's just, I don't know. I had the 3 hours out, but I was on my own. Yeah. And then 21 hours just on my little blue mat bed thing.
Wow. You're being very generous with your time. I know you want to get home and it's almost noon and you got other things to do on your
I
first
want to
day
see the
out.
kids. I just want to see the kids.
I just want to ask you about two more things, and then I'll be done. One of the things that's accelerated when you were away is other prosecutions for people saying hurt words, like Lucy Connelly, the spouse of a Conservative Party councillor, made a tweet after the Southport stabbings, and it was intemperate, it was a little rough. She took it down within hours, but she was sentenced to 31 months in prison, and that was upheld in court. Did you follow that in prison? Do you have thoughts on that?
I followed it. Lucy Connelly is not a criminal, in my eyes, in the whole country's eyes, I reckon. She's a mother. She was angry, as were many in this country, angry and betrayed. As migrants coming off boats, £15 billion is being spent. Working class families can't feed their families, old age pensioners can't heat their homes, and hotels are being flooded and filled with migrant men, many of whom are sexual offenders, gone on to rape, gone on to commit terrorism. So when that attack happens, I wasn't aware at the time, but Lucy Connelly lost her own child, I believe. So she's lost her own, and it triggered things for her. And everyone, what social media is, it's like shouting. And then she shouted, And then she realised it was wrong, and she deleted it. Now, even if the state and the government, because it was all political, because they got the courts within 48 hours to imprison all these people.
Yeah, I've never seen that before.
It's never happened, man.
Never seen that for actual crimes.
For actual criminals. So everyone under 30 words and said a few words on Facebook or social media were locked up in prison. Now, if they say that was justified, well, so far she's done a year. She's got a 12-year-old daughter. Send that woman home. Do you know, if I had the option, because I got out 4 months early, I'd have done my 4 months. And let her go. Let that mother go. Wow. And the thing is, the state decided to lock up English and British mothers, fathers, grandfathers. Peter Lynch was murdered by the state.
Right.
He was a granddad. They weren't criminals. These people were just, and their anger was justified. Yeah. They're so angry, and the country is so fed up. And
they were lied to. They were lied to about the nature of the stabbings.
They were lied to. They were lied to, and the government. I believe it's come out since I was in here. Remember, Keir Starmer stood on the news everywhere saying it was the far right, and it was the far right, and it was the far right. And it's come out now that there was no far right. Yeah. It was angry people in every town and city because the whole country's angry of the government's failures. And rather than address the reasons why people are angry, they just blamed it on far right ideology, locked everyone up. But my thing is, you see, locking up Lucy Connelly, you see, locking me up, locking Peter Lynch up, doing it so high profile, doing it so public, and not backing down recently. Right. That's to scare you. That's to scare the public. You're supposed to be scared into silence. You're supposed to be too scared to say anything on social media, too scared to attend demonstrations because they were locking up people for peacefully protesting. And I think the only response to that, which is what I took satisfaction with my film, and if you want to do a service to the people who are being silenced and being imprisoned, then show a show of defiance on the 13th of September. We're going to hold the biggest celebration of free speech, a festival of freedom, happening in central London, with guest speakers. Ezra, you coming?
I'd love to.
From Canada?
Yeah.
It's going to be, we've got speakers agreed from Canada.
September 13th?
September 13th. Some high-profile MAGA representatives coming from America. We've got Polish politicians, Danish politicians. We've got people coming from everywhere. German, AfD politicians. In a show of defiance that they want to take our free speech. With this film, if you want to gag me and take my free speech, the world's going to know about it. Let everyone in Britain, if you're fed up of the suppression of speech, if you're fed up of the attack, the war being waged upon our country and our people, the flooding of our nation, the fact you can't get a dentist appointment, yet migrants are straight to the front of the queue, the fact they're just flooding this country and old age pensioners can't heat their houses, yet, as I said, 15 billion is being spent on these hotels. All of these things. Keir Starmer's got in, going to stop it. He's not going to stop it. It's against his ideology. He wants it. They're not going to oppose it, so it's all bullshit. But I think that people, rather than coming out in anger, we've showed with the United Kingdom, which I think terrified the establishment. They want us to be this rabble-rousing group. They want us to be a group of thugs. We're not. They don't define who we are, we do. In our last 3 organised demonstrations, we had a festival, atmosphere, music. We united this country like no one's seen. We're not just going to unite the country. On the 13th of September, we can unite the world. People are coming from everywhere. It's going to be Unite the Kingdom /MAGA/Mega. I'm excited about it. And for me, we need to start where we left off. Prison hasn't derailed our movement. We were building a cultural movement. In fact, it hasn't just derailed it, it's accelerated it. And you're going to see that on the 13th of September. I'm excited about a lot of the work I can do. I'm excited that my team at Urban Scoop are still there. And I'm excited because during this imprisonment, people, journalists, commentators who would never have spoke up are now speaking up. There's been a mass shift, and I've seen that shift myself, and certainly the Labour Party and the Conservative Party saw that shift in the votes for reform, yeah? But I've physically seen that shift on the street by the reaction I receive and the people talking about things and the people watching things. So the mood of the country and the mood of the nation has changed, and that's given confidence. And the Overton window has continually shifted. Thank you to the United States of America, thank you to Donald Trump, thank you to J.D. Vance, and thank you to Elon Musk, because single-handedly, the ripple effect coming out, I think many of us in the UK, I know certainly me when I sat in my cells, were so excited for America. And then J.D. Vance in Munich talking about free speech, and we are under attack by our leaders who care nothing for our freedoms. And if we lose our free speech, we lose everything. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm also worried because I know they're coming at me from every angle. But I'm also very grateful to the people who spoke up on my behalf, to the people who saw the truth and saw what was right compared to what was wrong and spoke up. And there was quite a lot of people there, Piers Morgan, for example. I think people made comments who disagree with me and don't like me. I think there was quite a lot of people that spoke up, and I appreciate it. I appreciate every second of it. And I had whilst I had some low moments, and I struggled at times now, I did struggle, but I had some great moments as well. And it's an experience. And as I said, I don't think there's probably anyone better placed in this country right now that's going to be able to speak about what's happening within our prison system. The officers have no voice. Do you know, I'd like to thank the staff at HMP Woodhill.
That's an interesting thing to hear.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the staff. There's this view given of prison officers. What people don't realise is they're ordinary people. Think of it. Woodhill houses the worst, most violent offenders in our country. Many of them psychopaths. Yeah, some of the crimes they've committed on these maximum security units. Do you know who's got to walk them from A to B from their cell? Someone's mum, someone's dad, just an ordinary person. I sit there and think, we're not talking 6 trained killers. So this man is a trained killer, yeah? And he's got to get walked from there. And the people who've got to deal with him every day and bring him his food and get him out for a shower, they're just normal bods. They're just normal bods. Do you know, like the officer, one officer even just yesterday said he's been attacked every month for 6 months. So they've put themselves, I never thought of it. I never thought of it till I sat and listened so much. And I've never seen a prison like Woodhill with the amount of violence. Constantly the bells, the alarm bells, because you hear them on the radio, going off, violence every day, stabbings, every day. It's insane what's going on there.
Nicola Marfleet's legacy.
Legacy, she's left now. She's left. And do you know what? Do you know I ask the staff, I always do, what they think of the governor. So I ask this in every prison. And about everything, I ask what Julian Assange was like when I meet the staff. So I asked the staff what Charles Bronson was like, who's a famous British prisoner. They all liked him, yeah? I asked all the staff about Nicola Marfleet. Like they say, a manager loses the changing room, yeah? A football manager, if they lose the changing room, they've lost because the players won't play for them. Right. Well, she'd lost the staff. Yeah. But then there's a new governor there now, and I obviously asked a lot of the staff about him, and everyone spoke very highly of him, which is a massive difference. Yeah. A massive difference. But yeah, I think... I'm grateful more than anyone to my family as well, who have put up with some madness.
Tommy, I've taken up more time of yours than I thought I would. Today's a big day for you to reconnect with the family. Thanks for taking an hour
Ezra,
to talk to our viewers, and a lot of people around the world love you.
No, Ezra, I said it earlier, everyone needs an Ezra Levant. Ezra has maintained contact with my family the whole time. Do you know they blocked any contact with me and Ezra? And I believe that if I'd had personal contact with him, I'd have got out way earlier. Yeah, but it was blocked. Ezra's had my back, supported my family. I'm very grateful to you and everyone who watched you and supported you in that. So if you're one of the people, I'm grateful. And do you know everyone who just wrote me a letter? Just know, because I felt bad because I couldn't reply. And even on the emails, I couldn't reply. And I had some heartbreaking emails and some beautiful emails, but they just messed with all my replies. So I'm very grateful. If you took the time to write to me, know that I read your letter. I've got them all. I've got a garage full. I had some beautiful moments in there.
Thanks, my friend.
Cheers, thank you.
Go enjoy your family.
Thank you very much, man.